Hi guys, welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking about every single book on my physical TBR, as well as unhauling some books. So I'll be going through just kind of telling you what books I have right now. I have a lot of my newer purchased books up here, and then they get older the farther down I go on the book cart. Got this rolling cart off Amazon, so I'll link it down below if you're interested. It's metal, it holds a lot obviously, and I really like it. It keeps everything organized, and it really makes it easy to know what books I have, what books I don't have, and what books I'm kind of in the mood to read. So we're gonna get started with this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe and click the like button if you enjoyed this video. I have a lot more content coming out the rest of the year, and I'm really excited, but we're going to be talking about every single book I own that I have not read going into 2025. So let's get into it. So everything you can see other than like behind these books, there is a row of books, but everything is like one-sided. So there's nothing on the back. I've made it all visible at least, so you know kind of an idea of what I have. Let's start with the top and just work our way down. The first book I have is Defy Me by Tahereh Mafi. This is book 5 in the Shatter Me series. I usually use these books as filler books or books to take a break from other books, if that makes sense. So if I'm reading a lot of fantasy, I might throw one of these in because they're pretty small and quick. So I'm on book 5 and I really need to continue this series. This is a dystopian type young adult book with a lot of like action, and there's some magic, and it's really cool. So this is the first book on my physical TBR. I will be keeping this book because I know I'll get to it, I just don't know when. The next book is actually one that I got for Christmas from my mom, and my sister Chloe and I got the same book because we're going to actually read this together this month. So that will be coming out. But this is Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver. I honestly don't know a lot about this book. I was seeing a lot of people read it at one point, and there was very good reviews. So I figured this would be a really interesting book to start. She was kind of intrigued by it. This is a friends to lovers trope with some like dark romance, and it says full of murder, chaos, and sizzling chemistry. So this is the next book. This is a book I just picked up actually because I was seeing Sarah and Des rave about this author, Frederick Backman. So I picked up Beartown because there's this one and Anxious People, and I figured this one is the one I would start with. I've never read a book by him, but it seems like they absolutely love his writing, and I'm really excited to try a new author. This book takes place at like an old ice rink in a town called Beartown, and these 3 friends go there because they are on the junior ice hockey team, and it's about to be their semifinals. And basically their semifinal, in some way, their match leaves a young girl traumatized. So it's kind of taking you through that story of what happens, and I'm really excited about this book. So this is the next one on my TBR. This is gonna be our first unhaul. Passenger by Alexandra Bracken. This was on my December TBR, and I did pick it up, but I think in the back of my mind, I know I've had this book forever, probably about 8 years, and that stuck with me because I feel like I'm trying to put myself in my past self to read it, and I just don't want to do that. So I'm gonna unhaul it. I've had it a really long time. I do think I would really enjoy it, and I do think it's a good book. It's just super old, and I'm not interested in reading it anytime soon. So we're gonna unhaul Passenger by Alexandra Bracken. We have Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. I did start this book. I am on chapter 7, and I just need to continue reading it. I love Riley Sager's writing, but I started this book when I was getting out of my long book slump, so I kind of just put it off to the side and prioritized other books that were more intriguing to me at the time. And this, I know I'm gonna love it. I just need to get into it and hope that it speeds up soon, because I feel like it was at a very slow point for me, and that made it hard to want to pick it up and read. But I am going to keep this, Middle of the Night. I will probably end up reading it sometime soon because I hate starting books and not finishing them because I feel like I'm going to forget what I was reading. But that's that one. This book my mom ordered and she actually got 2 copies. It is a nonfiction book and it's called Why Am I Like This? My Brain Isn't Broken and Neither Is Yours by Gemma Stiles. My mom loves Harry Styles, so she bought Gemma his sister's book and I guess they sent her 2, so she just asked if I would want it, and so now I have a book. I just don't know if I'm gonna read it. I really don't know what it's about other than like the title. I do think it would be a very, not inspirational, but insightful book for me to read, and maybe I can read my first nonfiction book because I don't think I've read one, at least in many, many years. So Why Am I Like This is the next book. We then have Phantasma by Kylie Smith. Again, I was hearing really good things about this from Sarah. She kind of read it before it was popular and then it became popular, and I wanted to pick it up because I think this would be a really nice kind of new fantasy book. I'm pretty sure there's several books that are going to be in this series. Maybe I could be wrong about that, don't quote me, but it says on the cover, the only thing deadlier than losing the game is losing your heart. So it seems like a fantasy with like some romance, maybe some love triangle kind of thing, but I am really interested in reading this book. This was actually going to be the book that I was going to read next, but I actually ended up picking out a different book, so this is definitely high on the priority list and I'm really excited to get into it. Throne of Secrets by Carrie Maniscalco. This is the second book in the Kingdom of the Wicked. Nope, that's her other series. Throne of the Fallen. So I loved that book because it was different for me. It's vampires and there was basically this like challenge that was going on. I ate that book up. I loved it way more than I thought. I really liked the male character too in the book. So this is just the sequel to that and I cannot wait to read it. I don't know. I keep saying I'm really excited and this was going to be like a priority, but it really is. Like I want to prioritize every book, but Throne of Secrets is the next book. Assistant to the Villain. This book I've had for quite a while. I think a year now, or coming up on a year. I know this is gonna sound so weird, but I do think the like size of this book frightens me a little bit. I don't know why, because it's so much bigger. It's not thin, but the like book size is different than other books. If I show you, it's like longer and taller. I don't know, but I think I'm gonna put this on a maybe unhaul slash, if I don't read this within the next like 3 to 6 months, I need to get rid of it because I've had it for so long. And there is another book to this. I honestly haven't heard that much about the second book. I could be wrong. If you really enjoy this series, please let me know. Or if you think that I should read this, tell me because I will. I'm just gonna kind of keep it in a certain pile that I need to get to. Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent. This is the War of Lost Hearts and this is the first book. I really do want to get into this book. I have heard really good things. It's just a very big commitment because it's a dense book. It's a fantasy. This follows a girl who was basically in slavery, and the night that she wanted to get away, she almost died, but instead killed the most powerful man in her town or in her city. And so now she's kind of on the run. She's hiding because they're looking for her. She meets up with this guy and it kind of goes from there. He is against the orders. She is trying to basically like save herself in a way, and I can assume that there's probably some kind of romance that happens, but this is a book that I've had for I would say a fair while, but it's definitely one that I'm interested in reading, so I know I want to keep it. Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little worried to start this book, only because I heard that it was not as good as the first book. I could be like wrong, and maybe I heard that from the wrong people, but everyone has their own opinions. I just heard that some people do not love this book, so we're gonna find out. I do want to keep it because I just bought it and I loved Better Than the Movies, so I just need to throw myself in this book and hope for the best. This is the sequel to Better Than the Movies. I loved that book. It's one of my 5-star reads. I wish I read it like every summer, honestly, and highly recommend if you want to get into a young adult romance because it's really fun and entertaining. Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score is the second book in the Knock 'Em Out series. I just recently read Things We Never Got Over by her, and I made a whole video on that, so I will be sure to link it. But this is the second book. I kind of had mixed feelings after the first one, and I was kind of curious who this is going to take place of, because her story was kind of done. So I don't know if it kind of takes place of someone else. I don't really want to spoil it. I know the first one was Grumpy Sunshine, so I don't know if this is a different trope, but I am going to keep this book because I did get through that book a lot faster than I thought I would. So I feel like the same might be for this book. The next two books we have are both by Carissa Broadbent as well, the same author as Daughter of No Worlds. First we have The Ashes and the Starcursed King, which is the second book in the Nightborn duet. I first read The Serpent and the Wings of Night, which is another vampire fantasy, which, I don't know, maybe I just read a lot of vampire books last year that I never thought of, but I really enjoyed it because, again, I don't read vampire novels, so I felt like it was a good change of pace, and it was very entertaining, action-filled. There was some romance, so I was really excited when the second book came out. So went ahead, have this one. And then we have book one in the Shadowborn duet, which is a different duet by her. And this is The Songbird and the Heart of Stone. I have no idea what this one is about compared to the other ones. I don't know if it's kind of like a side story to that. I don't know if it's a completely different story. I'm not sure, but it's definitely intriguing, and these books are not too thick, so I definitely think I'll be able to get through these a little quicker than some of the other books. Book 3 of the Twisted series, which is Twisted Hate by Anna Huang. This is the he hates her, but he wants her kind of thing. And similar to the Shatter Me series, I use these books as fillers, but this is kind of a thick filler, so I've kind of been putting it off. It is a romance book, and my opinions about the other books have definitely gone up and down. It's so hit or miss if I enjoy it, if it's okay. So we'll see when I get to this one, but I know I'll probably get to it sometime soon. The next book that I think might be on probation is Never by Jessa Hastings. I bought this book because I had just recently finished Magnolia Parks when I found it, and I was obsessed with Jessa's writing and her stories, and I saw this, and it's a Peter Pan retelling. Peter Pan is one of my favorite Disney movies. It has been since I was growing up, so I have another Peter Pan retelling actually on my shelf that we're going to talk about, but then I saw bad reviews, and it kind of put me off to where I wasn't picking it up and I wasn't really interested in reading it, because I'm so worried I'm not going to like it. So I'm going to put it on probation along with Assistant to the Villain, and if I don't read it soon, I think I should unhaul it. So these two are going to go together. Ironically, they're the same size book. I told you. I think it puts me off, but moving on. Another book I'm going to unhaul is Fall into Temptation by Lucy Score. I picked this book up thinking it was new, but they just recovered it, and it's an old book. So I don't think I'm going to read it. It just doesn't seem interesting to me. Frankly, I have a ton of other books that I really want to read, so maybe I'll pass it on to my sister and see if she wants to read it. It is a romance book, and it says, "Your kids are great," he said, changing the subject. "Don't be sweet, I can't resist sweet. Gianna warned him, your kids are monsters and I hate your face." It just doesn't seem interesting to me. I loved the cover, and it was on Black Friday sale, and that's why I picked it up, but I'm just not going to read it. So, unhauling. Betting on You by Lynn Painter. Love this book, first of all. It's stunning, and I can't wait to read this. I have read a few other Lynn Painter books. I've read Better Than the Movies and The Do-Over, and I loved both of them. So, of course, I had to get this book, Betting on You, and I think I'm going to love it. I hope. We'll see. I'll be sure to let you know. The last book at the top is Haunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton. I bought this book because my sister had read both of these books actually, and she thought they were pretty interesting, and I was seeing a ton of things, so I figured, okay, I'll pick it up and we'll see if I start reading it. I know that this is a bit of a frisky, spicy book, but maybe I would be in the mood for that sometime. I really don't know. She just tells me it's not what you think, but We have Haunting Adeline. Maybe I'll get to it sometime soon. Maybe it'll be later in the year. Moving down to the second row, some of these I've had for a really long time. Some of them I have not had for a very long time. First one is The Summer of Broken Rules by Kale Wather. Let me go ahead and read the back of this book and see if I'm interested in reading it, okay? Okay, the verdict is in. I think I'm going to keep this and I'm going to read it during the summer. It'll be one of my summer books that I have lined up. I know a lot of what I have are fantasies, so I think this would be a nice book to throw in between, but it will be, if I don't read it this summer, I'm going to get rid of it because to me it's a summer book. Obviously it has summer in the title, so if I don't read it this summer, that would be 2 summers that I've had it, and I just think that's too long, and it's not even that big of a book, so there's no reason I shouldn't read it. So The Summer of Broken Rules I will keep. We have The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I cannot wait to read this book. I know it's been talked about and then it's kind of been forgotten in my eyes, but I've heard amazing things. It's kind of like a mystery book, so young adult mystery. There's really not too much romance, but enough to like keep you intrigued. I have just heard amazing things about all of these books, so I cannot wait to start reading them and just never put them down. This will definitely be a really recent read early in the year because I want to get to the other ones as well. Renegades by Marissa Meyer, another book that I've heard amazing things about. I think just the length of it scares me a little bit. I think this is more of a sci-fi book, which I don't really pick up a lot, and I want to kind of diverse myself a little bit more this year with new authors and new genres. So this will be one that will help me do that, as well as I read Marissa Meyer's when I was in high school, like Cinder by Marissa Meyer's. I read that. and so I feel like I need to bring back my childhood author and read Renegades. So By a Thread by Lucy Score. I have this book and I'm going to read it. Someone that I went to college with actually had been reading this book and she said that I really need to read it. So I went ahead and bought it. I just need to pick it up and start it. It says a grumpy boss romantic comedy, so it might be kind of like a Grumpy Sunshine trope, and I think it'll be a pretty quick read, hopefully. Her books are always so big. Why? Shadow and Bone trilogy. I just don't think I'm going to pick up these books, which is so sad because I really do think I would love this series. I started the first season of the TV show. I read Crooked Kingdom and Six of Crows, but for some reason I just can't get myself to pick up one of these books. Even when they're on my TBR for the month, I just can't pick them up. So I think I'm going to unhaul them, ask my sister if she wants them. If I decide I want to read them in the future, I'll pick them up then, but there's no reason they need to be on my shelf for me not to read them. Other people would love to read these, so we're gonna get rid of them. Local Woman Missing by Mary Kubico, and this is a thriller. I don't have many thrillers. Actually, this is the only other thriller on my bookshelf other than Riley Sager's books, so definitely keeping this one. I love thrillers. I love to just throw them in. A good mystery, I just eat it up. So Local Woman Missing, this is about a girl that disappears and then 11 years later she returns, and they're kind of trying to figure out what happened to her, where she went, how she got back, how she survived, all of those things. And it's not too thick of a book, so I think this would be a fun read. Fun, upsetting, I don't know. The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I am going to keep this trilogy. The reason being, I started the first book and got maybe, oh, I still have my bookmark in it. I was on chapter 15, literally, I think maybe like July of this year, and then I was going through some things and I stopped reading it. We're taking out the bookmark and we're gonna restart because I was enjoying it. I just didn't have the attention span to sit down and read a book. So we're keeping this series. We're getting rid of the Shadow and Bone. I feel like that's a good trade-off. Red Queen by Victoria Avantgarde. This is another fantasy book. I think it's more young adult, but I could be wrong. There is a few other books in this series. I've just heard that it's entertaining. There's some romance, action, everything like that. And this is a book that I hope that I can pick up this year. When in Rome by Sarah Adams. I am so excited to read this book. I think this will be a summer read. I went to Rome, not last September, but the September before that. And oh my gosh, it just makes me want to read every single book about Italy and Rome and Capri and everything like that. So this book I think I'm gonna really love, and I can't wait to read it this year. Red Rising by Pierce Brown, a sci-fi book. I actually have heard about this book when I was really young, watching like the OG booktubers, and I never picked it up just because it is a sci-fi, and I feel like sci-fi books not scare me but worry me a little bit because I am afraid it'll be saying stuff and I'm gonna feel like so dumb. Like I'm just not gonna understand anything. But I want to pick this book up. As someone who doesn't read sci-fi, I really want to get into it and understand the love for it. The last book on that shelf was Powerful by Lauren Roberts. This is a novella to Powerless and Reckless, and I bought this book, honestly, I almost bought it again. Didn't know I had already bought it. So that's why we're making this video, okay? But it's a super small book. It's a novella. I feel like it'll be fun to read. I think it's about her and her sister in this book. So yeah, easy book. I think it'll be a nice like throw in to come back into the world until the third book comes out, Fearless, this year. So we have Powerful. My stack is getting big up here, but we're getting down to the last parts. Going back to the Peter Pan retelling. This book is called Unhooked by Lisa Maxwell. I'm gonna get rid of it. If I would have read it, I would have read it 8 years ago, and I just haven't. The only reason I'm keeping onto it is because it's a Peter Pan retelling, and I just feel like I'll love that, but I'm not picking it up, so why am I keeping it? I'm gonna get rid of it. I don't even know how long I've had this. Probably over 8 years if I'm being honest, but it's time to let it go. So it's unhauled. The Dazzling Heights by Catherine McGee. If you have not watched my most recent wrap-up, I had read The 1,000th Floor, I think in November or December. I honestly really cannot tell. I forget, but I had had that book for 8 years and I had picked it up twice previously. Finally picked it up and finished it because it was on audiobook. I just don't think I'm gonna pick this book up. I'm keeping it because of the covers. I just think it'll be beautiful, but I've gotten to the point where why am I gonna waste my time on books that I don't want to read? I might as well prioritize other books and really get into that than, you know, get into this book which has like 8 points of views. Like it's just a lot. So we're gonna unhaul this book. Is it a mistake to look at the cover? No, because it's boring. So unhauling. 2 books. We have Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, as well as Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. These are the last 2 books I have to read for this series. I love Harry Potter. I've watched the movies dozens and dozens of times. I know the words. It's like a comfort movie for me. And I just recently started reading the series, I think 2 or 3 years ago. And it's like, I know the series so well, so when I'm reading it, I kind of have an idea of like what's going on already. But I really want to read this last 2 books this year. Honestly, this is a series I would definitely reread if it was me, but I have to get through them all first. And I actually think this is probably going to be the next book I read very soon because I've been watching the movies with my boyfriend because it's his first time watching them, and it's definitely getting me into the mood of Harry Potter and the coziness. It's finally snowing outside, so we have these 2 books that I'm of course going to keep, and I actually think I'm going to put them higher up on my book cart, but we'll do that at the end. Now we're getting into a little bit of a rocky area, and that is because the last 4 books are Cassandra Clare books. If you are new to my channel, I got into reading because of Cassandra Clare and the Mortal Instruments. I read that series when I was in high school, and it brought back my love for reading. So I read all of those books. I've read The Infernal Devices twice through, actually. I've read a few of like the side books. I just recently, the most recent book I read was The Red Scrolls of Magic, and I just did not love it. So let's talk about the last few books that I have. I have The Lost Book of the White, which is the second book after The Red Scrolls of Magic, which I didn't love. So I almost think that I just need to give this series up or give it one more chance and really try to read it, because Chain of Thorns had come out early last year and I read it. It was just very disappointing, and it was a very highly anticipated book because I loved the first two in that series, and it just did not work for me. So I think I'm getting a little nervous getting back, and after reading so many different authors, I think my taste has changed a bit, because this is a young adult fantasy book, so it doesn't have a lot of the romance, which really I love the enemies to lovers, true enemies to lovers, friends to lovers, those kind of things. And now that we're getting to kind of the side books, it doesn't have a lot of that, and probation basically is what this book is going on. It's not a big book, which is why I'm doing that, and I need to read this by the end of this year. Otherwise, I need to get rid of it. I know a part of me is keeping it because I have the first book, so why don't I just read the second and have both books? But like I had mentioned before, I don't want to waste my time on books that I'm not interested in, because how the heck am I going to get through all of these plus all of the books I'm going to buy this year? So probation. Then we have all three books in the Dark Artifices. We have Lady Midnight, Lord of Shadows, and Queen of Air and Darkness. I am going to keep these because this is a series. I do think I'm going to be more willing to get into it because it's more of a storyline versus these really small kind of side quest books, I would call them basically. And if I don't read at least one of these by the end of the year, I think I'm going to go ahead and get rid of them. I know I'm keeping them for the completion of her basically book library, but I just can't do that. It's not reasonable. So those are the rest of the books on my cart. It's finally empty. I couldn't tell you the last time it was empty, probably 1 year ago when I filmed this video. We're gonna go ahead and organize it back up, count how many books I have, and talk about how many I want to read by the end of this year. Okay, I've officially organized all of them. I put a lot of the books that I'm more interested in reading right now up at the top, and then it kind of gets into the summary books, as well as some of the books that are not high on my priorities, but I'm still very excited to read. And then the bottom shelf is my probation shelf. So we have the Cassandra Clare books, Assistant to the Villain, Never. We have that nonfiction book just because it was a book that I bought, so I put it at the bottom. And then we do have the Inheritance Games. It's not on a probation. I just put it down at the bottom because it's a whole series, whereas some of these are standalones and a lot easier to get through. And then we put both of my thrillers kind of at the top of the stacks. One, because I didn't have room, but two, because I'm not in a thriller mood, so it's not something that's up here. We have all of this done. Let's count how many books are on my physical TBR going into 2025. 35 books on my physical TBR. I do feel like I read a ton of my TBR last year, like a lot of it were books that I already had. I didn't really buy a ton of new books, but towards the end of the year I definitely got some more. So 35 books here. We are unhauling a total of 7 books, which I think is really good because I love a good bookshelf library in my room. A lot of the time I keep these books because I want them to go on my shelf. Well, I'm not interested in them, so why would I do that? Just to refresh a little bit, we're getting rid of The Dazzling Heights by Katherine McGee. We're getting rid of Unhooked by Lisa Maxwell, Shadow and Bone, Ruin and Rising, Siege and Storm, Fall into Temptation by Lucy Score, and then Passenger by Alexandra Bracken. I know a part of me was keeping this because Sarah J. Maas put a blurb at the top, so I'm sorry, Sarah J. Maas. I just gotta get rid of you. I love all the rest of your books. This wasn't one of yours, so I'm not reading it. That's it for this video. I am hoping to read at least 50% of these books, so it's about 18 books, which honestly I don't feel like is that bad. Really, like, I'm so interested in about like 20 of these books, so I don't think that'll be too hard this year. Leave a comment down below if you have any thoughts about the books I'm unhauling, if you completely agree with me, if you disagree with me, if there are any of these books that you really want to see me read first. Tell me, because I will. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!